This is by way of general background, just to give everybody a sense of where we are right now. It has been snowing for a number of hours, at times quite heavily, at other times not so heavily, probably seeing a range of 3 to 4 inches that have fallen across the state. Under normal circumstances, this would not be a big situation. But obviously, everything is starting to compound, and it gets more difficult each time we have a snowfall. What we do anticipate is going to happen with this storm, and we just went over it, is that it's going to stop snowing throughout the state, or throughout most of the state, through southwestern Connecticut, central areas of the state, approximately by 2 p.m. So we're not going to do an early dismissal. We see a lot of people have decided to stay home. Schools were closed. For instance, on our own ranks of state employees, we're seeing about a 20% stay-home rate through today, as we have consistently on a lot of these snow days where schools have been canceled. And we're going to wait on any dismissal till the afternoon, where we think, and the DOT is confident, at least with respect to the roads that they maintain, that they can get on top of pretty quickly. We're going to have a 4 p.m. session like the one we just completed to look at where we are with respect to this portion of the storm. So that's today's portion, and what we can reasonably discern and predict from how the southern storm is taking shape and taking hold, and what that might mean for us beginning presumably around 2 a.m. Tomorrow morning. And then we'll make some reasonable decisions based on where we are at 4, or we'll kick it over till 8, or we'll kick it over till later, depending on how secure we are with what we're being told by the various weather services. Now, there are a number of announcements that you could help people understand. Number one, we have talked for days and days about roofs. These roof rakes pulling snow off the roof, pitched roofs, if it's accumulated, is a smart idea. Obviously, people have to be very careful about electric wires. Please stay away from them, and don't go near them. And a rake is not something to knock ice off of wires, particularly as we're looking at the possibility of a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of ice accumulation in tomorrow's storm. Do not touch those wires. Second,
is that what your forecaster is saying?
Yes. Just to give you some background, a 1/4 inch is not a big deal. You get to the 1/2 inch. I think I said this to some of you yesterday. We're going to see outages. You get over a 1/2 inch, we're going to see large outages. So that's a lot of what we're going to be looking at in the afternoon and evening forecast as we go along. Decks. We've talked a lot about roofs. If you have a deck that's attached to your house, these wooden-style decks, they need to be cleared. And in as much as we're looking at about a 12-hour period of time when there won't be precipitation, approximately 2 this afternoon through 2 a.m., this would be the time to clear those decks. Those things will pull away from the house in many cases if you don't get the snow and ice off of them. So what you could end up seeing is a shifting, a pulling away from the house. The deck goes down. Obviously, we don't want people under decks, but we do want people clearing snow from decks as we do roofs. We've put out a series of advisories about flat roofs in particular. Those are relatively easy to clear. You need a shovel, and you need to get up there, and you need to clear it. And people have been engaged in that. We at the state of Connecticut have been engaged in that in a number of our buildings across the state of Connecticut. Final point, a couple things. Over the weekend, we saw a backhoe back into a propane gas tank. We are reminded that people who are expecting deliveries of propane to keep their heat going, you need to dig out around those things carefully with a shovel, not a backhoe, and be very careful of the lines connecting those facilities. With respect to oil delivery, we've been asked by the oil deliverers to remind people that they can't deliver oil if they can't get to the valve. And then finally to remind people on side ventilating systems that those vents need to be clear. So those are kind of our public service announcements for this session. Now I'll take some questions.
Sorry. You mentioned that it gets harder and harder every time. Is it simply also because of the fact there's so much snow accumulating already that the crews really just don't know where to put it?
Yeah, I think that is a particular problem for local governments across the state. That they can't, a lot of roads. I've seen the pictures in Naugatuck and Waterbury and other parts of the state where they're down to a single lane and there's not much room to get this stuff out. And these back-to-back-to-back storms are just not giving enough time to get on top of some of the removal efforts that some of these towns would engage in if they had some breathing room.
What do the power companies tell you they're prepared for if we do get an excessive half-inch of ice in some parts of the state?
Well, they're prepared to respond. The question is there's a big difference between having a few thousand or 10,000 people out or 80,000 people that you might expect but if you get into a truly devastating. Listen, I was in college in 1973. I remember coming back to Connecticut in that storm, and obviously we were devastated by it. So that's one end of the extreme, and some of the stuff that we've experienced in some of the earlier storms this year is the easy part of the extreme. So we're going to watch that, but we need to be aware of that. And people, if later in the day we're looking at predicting heavy accumulation of ice, we're going to start talking about telling people that if they're going to rely on heating systems, their fireplaces, that ventilation is key. And if you live in a small apartment, you don't heat a small apartment with a gas burning oven because you're going to get gases build up in the house and potentially loss of life. So there are other warnings that we'll make. I saw somebody's announcement. Nanny reference to nannies. Listen, we're just trying to have people be mindful of some of the precautions they need to take.